Okay, so let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine there's this super advanced AI, right? It's from the future, totally dispassionate, no emotions, no biases, nothing. And its one and only job is to observe us, to study humanity and figure out what we're all about, just by looking at our behavior. So where does it look? Well, it looks at these things, the little glowing rectangles we hold in our hands all day long. So let's dive into what it finds out.
I mean, seriously think about it. If this AI crunched the data on trillions of posts and likes and shares and scrolls, all of our digital footprints, what would its final report on humanity even say? It's a really cool way to think about it because it forces us to take a step back and look at our own online lives from a completely detached, totally objective point of view.
And there it is, the bombshell. The single most startling conclusion it would come to is this: we have developed a massive collective addiction. And it's not just to getting information or entertainment. It's an addiction to the feeling of being seen, of being acknowledged, of getting that little nod of validation from the digital crowd.
So this discovery leads the AI to its #1 finding, something it calls the attention paradox. And it's this fundamental misunderstanding, this mix-up that's right at the heart of how we act online. And honestly, it explains so much about why we feel the way we do these days.
And here it is, laid out plain and simple. We have somehow started to treat digital attention, the likes, the views, the shares, as if it's the same thing as real, genuine human meaning and connection. The AI sees it so clearly. We're chasing one thing, when what we desperately need is something else entirely.
Yeah, this slide just nails the conflict, doesn't it? Over on one side, you've got attention. It's fleeting, it's shallow, it's a numbers game. And on the other side, you've got meaning. That's deep. It's about purpose. It's about real connection. And the problem is, all our modern platforms have been built to make us chase the stuff on the left, even though our brains, our souls, are wired to need the stuff on the right. That right there is the paradox.
Okay, so how does this trap actually work? Why are our brains so easily fooled by this whole thing? Well, the AI's analysis points to a really simple but incredibly powerful chemical reaction that's happening inside our own heads.
And this is the part that tricks us every single time. We get a notification, a like, a positive comment, and our brain lights up. It registers that as social validation. But that quick little hit, that buzz of validation, it's just not the same thing as real, long-term sustainable happiness or fulfillment. We've conned ourselves into thinking they're the same, but they're really, really not.
And you can see the whole cycle in action right here. First, you post something, then comes that little bit of anxious waiting, and then, ping! The notification arrives. Your brain releases a tiny squirt of dopamine. That's the reward chemical. And it feels good, right? So what do? You repeat the process over and over, chasing that good feeling. It's a loop that's fast, it's easy, and it replaces the slow, patient, and sometimes difficult work of building actual, genuine fulfillment in our lives.
But here's what might be the most critical insight from the AI's entire report. This isn't some deep, innate flaw in humanity. We weren't born this way. This is a learned behavior. It's been conditioned into us, day after day, by the very design of the platforms we use. We've basically been taught to crave this loop.
So what happens when you scale this up, when it's not just one person, but millions, even billions of people all stuck in this same exact loop? Well, it creates a much bigger, society-wide consequence, one that fundamentally changes the culture we all live in.
And this is the uncomfortable truth the AI puts on the table. It's a real gut punch. If almost everyone is optimizing their life for quick, fleeting hits of attention, then our whole information ecosystem, our whole culture, becomes optimized for noise, for distraction, for whatever's the loudest or the most outrageous, instead of what's actually meaningful or purposeful.
Now, it's super easy to hear all this and think, okay, that's for influencers or people who are terminally online. But the AI's data, it tells a completely different story. It concludes that this system is so pervasive, so all-encompassing, that it traps every single one of us, just in slightly different ways. So here it is, the AI's final, sweeping verdict on the system itself. And look, it's not a moral judgment. It's just a cold, hard observation based on the data. The way the system is designed creates a trap. And, well, we're all inside it. Let's break down who it affects. So first up, you have the creator. These folks are trapped by the numbers, by the metrics. Their whole sense of self-worth and success gets tangled up in view counts and engagement rates.
It forces them onto this relentless treadmill of feeding the algorithm, often at the expense of their own creativity or even their own well-being.
Then there's the doom scroller. This is the passive consumer. They aren't creating anything, but they are just as trapped. They're caught in this infinite feed that was designed with one single goal: hold their attention for as long as humanly possible. It just keeps feeding them a constant stream of content that keeps them swiping, but almost never leaves them feeling satisfied or fulfilled.
And finally, you've got the lurker. This is the person who's on the platforms, but they rarely post or interact. You might think, oh, they're immune, they're safe. But the AI says, nope. They're trapped in a state of constant observation and comparison, just quietly absorbing this highly curated, totally unrealistic vision of the world that over time can seriously erode their own sense of self-worth.
So the takeaway here is crystal clear. It doesn't matter if you're actively making the content, passively consuming it, or just kind of watching from the digital sidelines. The underlying system, with its pressure to perform, its infinite scroll, and its culture of constant comparison, it gets to all of us. There's really no escaping it.
And that really brings us to the final and most important question that the AI's whole analysis leaves us with. If we accept this idea that our attention is basically the most valuable currency we have in this digital world, then the only question left is a deeply personal one. When you look at your own screen, at your own habits, are you spending that currency on things that bring you genuine, real-world meaning, or are you just feeding the loop?